Good morning. My name is Paul Hernnson. I am a professor at the University of Connecticut, and executive director of the Roper Center. And as a professor, I've never done anything in 2 minutes or less in the classroom or a lecture. But I'm from New York, so maybe I can do this. Improving the voting experience. Why is it important? Well, let's start off with the big picture, maybe a little political theory. Elections are about conferring power. And in a democracy, it's really important that we have high levels of participation and that people have a positive voting experience because that builds trust and confidence in the election system and in government. Now, we know that people who backed winning candidates and have a positive voting experience tend to have confidence in the system of elections and in governance. But there are other people that have not had that experience. People who have backed losing candidates, sometimes egged on by statements that, oh, the election was stolen, or people who have had a negative experience at the polls. Maybe they waited for a long time in line or had to deal with a not-so-friendly election worker or were turned away or had to cast a provisional vote. They don't have such positive experiences. And of course, people who have had both a negative experience at the polls and backed a losing candidate, they may have less trust and confidence in everything. So going from that to the current situation in the United States. We had an election in 2000 that was pretty flawed and some that followed, and that had a negative impact on voter confidence in the system, and trust in government, and perhaps turnout, as we see by the record low in 2014. Now, this situation was not randomly distributed. People who had the worst experiences tended to be, and usually are, the poor, minorities, and people of other traditionally underrepresented groups. The military and overseas citizens also had some difficulties voting. So, how do we fix this? Well, there are some opportunities to make changes and some challenges. One option would be to get more and better voting systems. The challenge, too expensive. Another option has to do with voters interacting with those systems, mainly the ballot. So a possibility is to simplify the ballot, get rid of things that are confusing, lead to errors, and are frustrating, such as elections that allow people to select more than one candidate on the ballot. That's pretty confusing for a lot of people. Or straight party options, which appear in several states. Challenge for that, politically infeasible. It would require states to pass either a constitutional amendment or several changes to their election laws, and we know politicians are very sensitive about that. So, a third option, improving the voting experience through making the interactions that voters have with the election system more positive. And most of this takes place at the local level, with local election officials. What can be done? One thing, better training for poll workers. And I had a grant to do that at one point from the Election Assistance Commission. Another thing, just professionalize the whole operation. Have incentives for people who work in elections to do a better job. Another option, recruit better poll workers. Replace the people who are underskilled, maybe challenged by years, with people who can do the job a little bit better. University students, others. Now, how do we do this? Well, increasing compensation for poll workers is one approach. Another approach is, which avoids the financial issue, is to allow people to substitute jury duty for election duty. Election duty for jury duty. Jury duty is unpredictable and unpleasant. Election duty can be quite fun if you've got the right attitude and you know you're going to miss the jury experience. So to conclude, elections are important in a democracy. It's very important for people to participate. They should have confidence in the election system so they can have trust in government. And this includes everyone, including military and overseas voters, people from traditionally underrepresented groups. Where to start? I say start at the local level, where it's cheap and where it's under control of local election officials and where we all have our first contact with the election system. Thank you.